Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
It's a blessing to be in this position, and we're just thankful to be here. We're thankful to have the opportunity to go out there and play in front of the 12 men.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Good Monday morning, Bryan College Station. Welcome to a B-Team edition of TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. If you are a fan of David Nuno, if you enjoy that Latin flair to this show, I would advise you to turn your radio off or shut us down on YouTube. He's out all week. So you're going to have to be dealing with the backups.
But if you're a fan of Southeast Texas flair,
well,
turn it up.
That's right. Turn it up.
11.
Who's not a fan of Southeast Texas flair? Ryan Brauninger in the host chair. I'll be with you today, on Wednesday, and on Friday. Nick Savage hosting tomorrow. I believe that's correct. Nick, just thumbs up me. Or you can talk.
Yeah, I'll talk. That's correct.
I took my earphones out. You know I'm bad about that.
He said that's correct.
That's correct.
He said that's correct. He's just getting everybody ready for the tones they're going to hear on Tuesday morning.
Well, the biggest, I think the biggest miss for the folks that listen into this radio show daily is going to be the person to my left. And that's no slight at you, Mr. Richard Zane. But, you know, people wake up on Monday morning and what do they want to hear? The velvety, yummy tones of Olin Buchanan.
Ugh. Yummy? Ugh. I didn't like that descriptor.
You've never heard Olin described as yummy? I don't think many people have.
No, I've never heard anybody. First off, I don't think I've heard many people described as yummy. Certainly haven't heard Olin described as yummy. And, you know, it was a little bit of a slight at me, but that's okay.
I know
exactly where I am.
I appreciate you filling in. I typically
don't get to be part of the B team, so I feel like this is a call-up. You know, from rookie ball, I'm going to advanced A ball now. I'm very much still in the minor league system, but it's a call-up to the B team, so I appreciate
the hierarchy, yeah. I appreciate you filling in. Reese Nygren in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
We're good. You're repping your Astros in front of Richard this morning.
I am. It's hard not to rep them after the weekend they just had.
I chose not to wear my Astros gear because I thought I might see you in the office. And
it'll be okay. I mean, the Astros had a fantastic weekend. The Dodgers had a miserable one.
It's been pretty wild, this run that Houston's been on. Is it like 24-7? Or is it 17-4? Something like that in their last.
Along those lines.
Yeah, like their last 21 games, they've won 17.
They've got the best record in baseball since like May 22nd, something like that. It's 8 games now in the American League West?
7, because Seattle won't go anywhere. We're not getting any help from anybody else. But Seattle's playing good ball too. But it's, you know, they're 1 game behind the Dodgers in overall record. They're 20 games over.
Detroit's right there too.
In the Blue Jays.
Which is crazy, and the Yankees have been tanking. That's been enjoyable to watch. This weekend was not enjoyable to watch in Los Angeles. Good news is MLB blackout restrictions meant that I couldn't watch. But I mean, what Houston did to the Dodgers is
offensively is what surprised me. And I know
they shut down the Dodgers offense without using Hunter Brown.
Yeah, Hunter Brown didn't pitch, and I understand that the Dodgers have their fair share of injuries. So does Houston. So what surprised me about that is, and what surprised me about Houston this year is kind of like they don't miss a beat when these guys get hurt. And Taylor Trammell's up, Zach Short's up. He has a huge weekend. Like they're doing such a good job of whenever they do have these injuries to Jordan or Pena.
I mean, Cam Smith has been one of the best stories in all of baseball. He didn't even expect to play this year.
Yeah, and
makes the team on opening day, and making a shout to be a Rookie of the Year finalist candidate, something like that. In the American League.
He's definitely. It's like one of those things. I think with him is once he got called up and he figured out, hey, I can do this. like, I'm good enough to do this, then you've seen him just take off. And it's just like with a lot of baseball players and a lot of athletes. Like, once that confidence comes, that light bulb goes on, they go, hey, like, I belong here. Then you see them really take off. He's hitting like, since he started off, he's hit like 120 something.
Yeah, it was really bad to start off. He was not doing.
And now he's pushing 300. Like, it's been a pretty wild run for him. And when you look at what Houston did in the offseason, they get rid of Bregman, they get rid of Kyle Tucker. Isaac Paredes has been incredible. Like, what Houston's scouting department did to find that guy and say, hey, he's going to fit with what we do in our ballpark because he hits the ball hard in the air to the pull side. Doesn't hit it very far, but he hits it hard in the air to the pull side. Well, where is that going to play at?
I mean, it plays at Minute Maid and it plays at Fenway.
Yeah. And you like the homer he hit in LA, like it barely clears the wall to left field. That's what he does. He
wouldn't know. I didn't see it.
Oh.
Was that part of the?
It was like the very first pitch of the series.
I got to watch Saturday's game, national telecast on Fox. I got to see Fromber, Mookie Betts make a terrible decision in the 7th inning.
That was bad.
But I did not see a single pitch of the 18-1 game. I didn't see a single pitch of yesterday's game. So thankful for that. Dude, like you said, Reese's wearing his stuff. You should, man. Feel happy about it. If the Dodgers had salvaged yesterday, I probably would have shown up in a little bit of blue. I always bleed my Dodger blue, but then I'm not worried about him at all, even after this weekend.
I have a question.
Okay.
For a Dodger fan, like, where are you at on this Altuve thing? Like, why does he keep getting booed? And like,
I think it's because he's one of the holdovers. Like, I know, I don't like Jose Altuve. I respect Jose Altuve because of what he's been able to accomplish as, a $15,000 signee, and he shows up and he's going to eventually wind up in Cooperstown. I respect that.
He's the best. I think he's the best player in franchise history.
A lot of recency bias there. I mean, Bagwell and Biggio are definitely going to have.
Yeah, but he's got rings.
Sure, but best player in program history or in franchise history.
He's on the Mount Rushmore.
I would like to ask Matthew Dawson, who's the greatest Cub of all time. Probably Ernie Banks, right? Mr. Cub. He probably would say Pete Crow Armstrong. But it's probably Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks didn't play in a single postseason game ever in his entire career.
Well, you got to understand too.
So I don't think rings make you the best player of all time.
The Cubs, but no, I'm not saying they do, but they certainly add when you've got them, and you're amongst the Biggios and Bagwells and Berkmans. Like, I would have. He's certainly on the Mount Rushmore, and he's probably on the Mount Rushmore of Houston sports. Nick Savage, you are a Houston Astros fan. Do you have an opinion on this?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I've been working back here. I apologize. Give me the topic real quick.
Jose Altuve, greatness.
As in like Astro?
Yeah, best Astro of all time?
I have a tough time. I'm a big Craig Biggio fan, so I have a tough time.
I love Biggio too. Him and Bagwell, like I grew up on those guys, the killer bees, right? But Altuve's got rings.
Yeah, that's true. I think when it's all said and done, when his career's over, Altuve's easily the greatest Astro of all time.
Well, so back to your question, was this about how he constantly gets booed and they chant cheater at him? I think it's just because it's a holdover, right? If anybody who's paid any attention over the last 8 years, which is crazy, since it's been 8 years since 2017, we have to bring it up every time these two teams match up, even though I think it's just Altuve, maybe McCullers, and then I think on the Dodger side, I'm pretty sure it's just Clayton Kershaw as a holdover. So, I think it's just that. I think it's just fans wanting to cling to something. But if you've been paying attention to anything, Altuve not involved in any of that stuff. For me, the guy I couldn't stand the most was Carlos Correa. And I've got my free Joe Kelly cup this morning. Carlos Correa, to me, is persona non grata. But, of course, I know my boss and the guy who usually sits in your chair have told me time and time again that he's actually a wonderful person, which makes it really hard to dislike the guy.
It's almost like I almost forget how great he was for Houston because Pena's been so good.
Yeah.
And again, to me,
All-Star first time.
Yeah, it's just a credit for, and they signed Christian Walker in the offseason. I'm going, is this going to work? Like, he's got a bunch of good numbers. He's getting into his like low to mid 30s, and you're taking him out of Arizona.
I don't want to talk about that guy.
And then obviously he's a Dodger killer. But all of a sudden he's playing better. The job they did, like I said, with Isaac Paredes, that was incredible. Yainer Diaz, a homegrown. Like they've got just such a lot of good pieces. And I got to believe my biggest question mark, Reese, was the offense. You know, they're pitching at such an elite level, but I worried about the offense because they hit a ton of solo homers.
Yeah.
Like, they hit so many solo home runs. Like, can you win that way in the postseason? Maybe you can because you're going to pitch so well, but I got confidence in them now, especially if you get a Pena and Jordan back.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the biggest question is the 3, 4, 5 starters with Gusto, Walter, and whoever else you throw in there at the that's my biggest concern. Now, Gusto looked really good yesterday, but that's I don't really worry about the offense. I worry about the 3, 4, 5 starting pitchers.
I don't think, but here's the thing, Reese, and this is new age baseball. You don't need to worry about the 3, 4, 5 starters. Once you get to October, you need to worry about your 1, 2, 3 guys. Your one's a Cy Young candidate. I won't say that he's the front runner because Tarek Skubal exists.
Yes.
Framber Valdez, every single time I watch that dude pitch, is fantastic. And if Lance McCullers is going to do what is going to be what you expect him to be, that's a really good 1, 2, 3. And then in a postseason series, if you have to bullpen game it, you'll have one of the best bullpens in baseball. So I don't think you worry about 3, 4, 5 starting pitchers. That if that's your concern, if you're an Astros fan, then that's a really, really good concern to have because I think you're a pretty solid ball club.
I didn't know we were going to do 12 minutes on Major League Baseball, and we are
crazy because we're going to get a phone call.
No, it's okay.
Some anonymous texter has already said, "Can we get to Aggie Sports?"
This is Aggie ridiculous. Sports on July what is it? July?
It's July 7th.
This is ridiculous. 10 minutes in and no Aggie Sports.
Well, change the channel. It's July 7th. We're going to talk.
Don't change the channel. We appreciate all the listeners and all the viewers.
If you don't like what we're talking about, just change the channel and come back. Like, we're not going to spend 3 hours on Major League Baseball. I promise. A&M got 2 massive commitments over the weekend. We're going to talk about that. I got Will Johnson coming in. We got Kendall Rogers on the show. We got Mark French on the show. So we're going to talk football, basketball, baseball. Then we're going to have Billy in for an hour, maybe plus.
And who knows if you're going to talk any sports whatsoever with Billy.
Billy might be hearing this and going, okay.
So you know what he did last night? He went to see Jurassic World. So I'm really interested to see what his review of that
It's awful.
Is.
I don't know what he'll think, but I'll tell you right now, it's awful.
Nick chiming in.
It must be that bad. Well, but Nick, you got to understand
the
lens
it was
that Nick,
really bad.
You didn't like Jurassic World?
I didn't. It's something about 7 dinosaur movies that the story kind of drops off a little bit.
But that's the thing with those movies is that people don't go see Jurassic Worlds for the story.
No.
They go to see Jurassic World
why
for the cool CGI and the
40
dinosaurs
minutes
just to watch
to show a dinosaur on the screen?
Ooh.
See, I didn't know that.
Spoiler alert. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, you got to use the fastball. Like if you're the Jurassic series, you got to be from minute 1 start throwing dinosaurs in there. So guys like Nick and his long hair.
Nick, does anybody go see Fast and Furious movies for the story? Are you there for the family?
No, I'm not. I guess I've
you're
never
there
seen
to see
a Fast
the cool
and
cars
Furious
do
movie.
some crazy stuff.
Nobody goes for the plot. They go to see people fight dinosaurs.
Exactly.
Like if you go for more than that,
okay,
you kind of set yourself
to Nick's
up.
point, if they don't throw a dinosaur on the screen for 40 minutes.
That's on them.
Nick, have you seen the F1 movie yet?
No, and I'm not going to.
Okay, it's good. You'll like it. I know you're super into NASCAR. You're an F1 hater. That's okay. Brad Pitt's really good. The story sucks, but
they
the
just
car
remade
stuff is
Days
cool.
of Thunder with F1, so nice try.
Oh, good.
Hey, can we close the book here on the Major League Baseball talk? Because I did want to get to this because you mentioned Tarek Skubal. The USA's rotation in the World Baseball Classic could be the best assembly of pitching any team has ever seen.
Well, they always say that, right? Like that could always be the case.
But right now,
but it always ends up who ends up wanting to pitch.
Right. If they all want to play, is what I'm saying. You go Skubal, Zach Wheeler, Hunter Brown,
Paul Skeens,
Jacob Mizorowski, who they're already talking about has the best stuff on the planet.
Well, how about let's keep it. Now, you're looking ahead to March, which USA Baseball is going to play their pool play games in Houston. I'm going to have to be there, see a couple of games, or rep my red, white, and blue. What about just next week? Next Tuesday in Atlanta is the All-Star game. Who starts for the American League and who starts for the National League?
Well, it's Skubal and Skeens.
I think Skubal starts, but I don't know if it's Skeens in the National League.
Wheeler.
Mizorowski's not going to be there, but he could be a replacement. Like
Kershaw, the Legends pick.
Kershaw's already started an All-Star game, but he doesn't. My guy, I was there on Wednesday to see him get his 3,000 strikeout. Favorite player of all time. I think he actually had a borderline all-star shout this year. It's pretty solid ERA until the White Sox scored 4 runs on him on a Wednesday night. But like that's cool that he's going to be in Atlanta, but he's not going to start. Like people want to see Paul Skeens throw 102 miles an hour and throw splinkers at people.
Yeah. I just wanted to close. I was on my mind because
cool.
I was talking about. I tweeted about the USA baseball pitching staff. We cannot end this first segment without just the overflow of emotions that we saw or that have come out of Central Texas in the Hill Country, a place that since I started going out there, and actually one of my first trips out to the Hill Country was to Comfort, Hunt, Kerrville, to go hunting with my dad. And like just enamored by the beauty of the place. And I think when you talk about the beauty of Texas, and that's at least what stands out to me, is that area north of San Antonio, west of San Antonio, west of Austin, and the sheer devastation and there's the heartbreak, like just gut-wrenching stuff that's come out of there. Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody in Central Texas, and God bless the first responders and the emergency medical teams that have just hopped in their car and went and did. And like you see the stories coming out now of these folks that have saved so many lives. And it's not going to bring anybody back, but they should be noticed for their heroic efforts. And I think they have. And one of the coolest things and why I'm so proud to be a Texan is because of the response in moments like this, not just by individuals, but by companies. And like when you see HEB's disaster relief team sprinting over there and these just large caravans of HEB trucks and just the outflowing and outpouring of emotion and love and a willingness to just drop everything and help financially with their work, whatever it may be. It's in the face of such a tragedy, it's been really cool to see. But I do want to offer our thoughts and prayers to all those affected by the waters, by the flooding in Central Texas and the aftermath of it. So we continue to pray for you here in College Station and in Aggieland. I know there were a lot of Aggies affected by this. You're at front of our minds and in front of our thoughts and prayers. And we ask just God be with you as you go forward and try to navigate an extremely difficult time. We'll come back on the other side. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
What is this?
Welcome back to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Ryan Brauninger in the host chair. The Go Hour is presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Don't forget to register for the 2025 TexAgs preseason kickoff. Available to all premium and varsity subscribers. The registration link is in Billy's Premium Forum. The event is July 26th at the MSC. We will hear from multiple head coaches across Texas A&M athletics, as well as have athletes in attendance. If you would like to sponsor a table at the event or donate an auction item, please email sponsors@texags.com, sponsors@texags.com. Come kick off the 2025 season with us. And Mike Elko.
It's going to be a good time.
Well, and Mike Elko is like already drumming up the hype. The train is moving for Mike Elko and company over the weekend, 4th of July weekend. Just a massive pair of commitments, one from my old stomping grounds, neck of the woods in Port Arthur, Texas, linebacker Tank King, and then
the tackling machine.
Tank King, the tackling machine, and then Bryce Perry Wright chooses the Aggies, one of the best and most disruptive defensive linemen in the country in this class. Bryce Perry Wright chooses the Aggies. That was on Saturday.
The 5th.
The 5th, A&M beats out Clemson, Texas. Those are the main two. Miami was kind of periphery there, but Tank King was one we talked a lot about, and it was going A&M's way for a while. And I think, you talked to enough people down there and around that Port Arthur Memorial program, and he was, this thing had been done for a while. And I think he got really close to announcing it after his official visit, or even, earlier than that, excuse me. You go back to some of these springtime visits he made during practice, and that's kind of when I knew.
It seems like it even been before that.
He
my
was
role with our publishing team and our recruiting team. You guys made me have notifications on for him for a while.
Yeah, and that was
months.
I just felt it was one of these kids I felt good about A&M's chances with, assuming that I was making the assumption that A&M was going to go make a huge push for him, and they did. A&M, Michigan, Notre Dame, and then Texas was kind of way off the radar with that one, but he listed them in his top 4. I've known Tank for a long, long time, and I talked about this last week and on the in-home visit breaking down Tank. I first met him when he was a 13-year-old baseball player coming up to Franklin, Texas to play against playing tournaments, and we played against him with my 12 team in that age group. And Tank was always just one of the best athletes on the field. That was clear. And then you start figuring out, he's actually like baseball is just something he does because he likes it. He's actually a really good football player. So he enrolls at Port Arthur Memorial as a freshman, who is a full year behind age-wise. So he is 14 years old as a freshman on the varsity at Port Arthur Memorial, and that team was a top 5A Division I team for the entirety of the season until they lost in the playoffs, and he led them in tackles as a 14-year-old. And so that's whenever he jumped on the radar. And that's whenever he started, Tank King, the tackling machine. And I love linebackers that whenever you go and Nick Savage is on the call on a Friday night, he's calling Tank King's name a bunch. And I think that's an important part of line. And look at what A&M's going to put on the field, especially with Torian York this year. That was the thing that made Torian such a coveted recruit, and why A&M kind of sifted through the Baylor offers, the Oklahoma State offers, and Duke offers, and they went, hey, this kid's like a real player. There's something about linebackers that make a bunch of tackles in high school. Maybe they don't measure off the charts, and Tank's going to measure fine. But that's what Tank does, is he makes tackles.
I like a linebacker named Tank. That's a fantastic linebacker name. You mentioned his baseball background. It might be an even better baseball name, Tank Hitting Tanks.
Oh, yeah.
But now, it's 3 linebackers in the class for the Aggies, Tank King, DeQuivius Beck, and then Storm Miller from Ohio. What do you like about that trio of players and what they put together to address that position in the class of 26?
Well, you like the upside of all of them, and they're all different. Storm Miller is going to be a big dude. He's already bigger and longer than all of those. And Tank, because he is so young in terms of his grade, I watched his live stream the other day, and I was like, man, he's even gotten bigger since I was down there. It was like a month or two before, getting some photos and talking to him about his official visit. And I was like, man, he looks like he's still getting taller. But Storm Miller is when you see him, you're going to go, that kid's going to be 6'4", 220 pounds, like at the drop of a hat once he gets here. And as it was described to me by somebody that knows the kid way better than I do, like he is on 24/7, the 24/7 around the clock. Storm Miller is ready to run right through your face. And like it's a
good
throwback
quality to have as a linebacker.
Yeah, it's like a throwback mentality, and he's on edge all the time. And they loved it. Like I know that the A&M staff was just completely enamored with his mentality during his official visit. They're like, and every time this kid is like, he's so intense and he could go play football right now, and right now is all day long.
I do have to correct myself. It's 4 linebackers in the class. I just didn't scroll down far enough on my screen. Samu Moala.
Yeah,
the longest committed one of the bunch. So it's 4 linebackers.
But it's different, though. It's really not. So Samu Moala is listed as a linebacker because we don't have an edge position that we can check mark on our website.
So I big-brained it.
Yeah, you're fine. You got it right. But Samu Moala and Tristan Givens.
Anybody, man.
Tristan Givens, who's another just freak show player that A&M was able to pull out of the state of Georgia. Those are like those true edge. It's Ryland Kennedy, Cassius Howell type of player. And man, it's this recruiting class right now. How do you not just give it an A+?
It's 13 commitments in the last 31 days.
And look who you're beating for these players. And we just had Tristan Givens up, and we talked about Bryce Perry Wright, Tank King. We mentioned Michigan, Notre Dame, both of those teams in the playoffs recently. And then the head-to-heads that they've won over Texas has been really something. And I know I'm not trying to get into this back and forth about with Texas fans or Texas writers about who Texas really wanted and how they backed off late. Whatever, that's fine. All I'm talking about is kids that official visited Texas that have committed to A&M and vice versa. A&M is winning that battle since Mike Elko's been here. He really is. Like, it's not some huge flex, but it is when you look at it factually, Mike Elko is winning a ton of head-to-heads against Texas. They've won their fair share, but Mike Elko, I think, is winning more. And you have to commend the job that he and Derek Miller, the GM, what they've done and how they've done it has been really kind of like sneaky under the radar of how much they have completely flipped the official visit experience, the unofficial visit experience, the creativeness, the initiatives that they've taken. For instance, when KJ Edwards showed up for his official visit, A&M surprised him with his grandparents were there. So they brought his grandparents in to meet him, and they surprised him at the door. And what happens a couple of weeks later? KJ Edwards commits, and A&M's got two of the two best running backs in the state of Texas now committed in their class with he and Jonathan Hatton. So you have to tip your cap to what Mike Elko, Derek Miller, the rest of their staff has done. It's just been phenomenal. It's as impressive a recruiting run as we've seen since 2022, and outside of that, it might be the most impressive. You know, that and that run in 2022, this and the run in 2022 are the two best that I can remember off the top of my head. 2021, there was a moment where they really garnered some momentum as well. But this summer, you go back to what was it? Was it Cam Hamill that started all this off? It may have been even before that. But it was like late May through right now, and what's going to potentially happen with Lamar Brown decision coming up, Tamarian Watkins decision coming up. This could be the most impressive run of Texas A&M recruiting that I've covered in a decade as an analyst. So there's your Texas A&M talk. So if everybody wanted to hear MLB, if they tuned in to hear MLB talk, they got it. If they tuned in to hear A&M recruiting talk, they got it.
And if you tuned in to hear Gold Cup talk, we're not going to do it.
Unfortunately, if the United States would have won,
we would have done 30 minutes on it.
I might have.
I was watching that game.
On the other side of the break, we're going to go back into MLB, but we're going to go MLB draft with Richard here. Start looking ahead to what's going to happen in, 6 days?
Starts on Sunday night in Atlanta.
Sunday night in Atlanta, the MLB draft starts. So we'll talk A&M baseball and what could happen and how that will influence this 2026 Aggie baseball roster On the other side of the break, you're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Welcome back to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Ryan Brauninger, the Go Hour, presented by CC Creations. We are inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. Richard Zane to my left, Reese Nygren to my right. We're going to be talking a little bit of MLB draft. Starts on July 13th in Atlanta. If you have been keeping up with our 2025 baseball transfer portal thread on TexAgs, which a lot of you looks like it has, it was 1.284 million views and over 5,000 replies in less than a month. So a lot of folks really intrigued still about Aggie baseball and what the roster could look like in year 2 of Mike Early, and what will impact that perhaps more than anything outside the transfer portal is the MLB draft. So Richard, I guess obviously we'll start with Jace LaViolette. Where do you anticipate, I guess not you, or where are you reading that the latest where he could go? And then some other names that you're like, hey, I wonder how high is this player going to be taken?
So with Jace LaViolette, he's not coming back to school. Anybody who thinks he has fallen far enough where he is not going to...
He made a farewell video.
Yeah, he made a farewell video. He's not coming back to school. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. I know there's a lot of amateur draft prognosticators out there that...
Baseball America had him at 61.
See the world through maroon-tinted glasses that want to say he's coming back.
I called 3 MLB scouts.
Going to be a first-rounder.
All they do is watch players in the state of Texas. I called 3 of them and asked them about the Baseball America update where they had Jace at 61, and they were audibly laughed.
So the latest Major League Baseball draft 4 days ago from MLB.com's Jim Callis had Jace at 20th overall to the Milwaukee Brewers. If he goes to the Milwaukee Brewers, I kind of like that landing spot for him, and I don't know too much about the Brewer organization.
Is that one pick in front of the Astros?
Program. Yes, it is 1 pick in front of the Astros, and it looks like they would be taking a Tennessee Volunteer. They've got Killen at 21, which I think Astro fans would be happy with. But
I wonder if they take Gavin Killen, and who knows how all this is going to play out.
Everything shakes out.
Gavin Killen, whenever he was at Dyken Park, he was like.
That was an insane
10
weekend.
hits that weekend with
Tennessee
6
played
homers.
every game before, right before A&M, so you got to watch him play every single. He was on fire, insane. But going back to Jace and the Brewers, if it is the Brewers, I don't know much about their development program. I don't know too much about their organization. They've got a pretty solid club that's going to contend for the National League Central this year. But just looking at their top 30 prospects in Milwaukee, only 5 of them. 5 in their top 30 are outfielders, and only 1 of those is in their top 10, and he's not even MLB's top 100 prospect. So it seems like an opportunity for Jace to really rise through the ranks of that minor league organization system to the big leagues, hopefully.
The thing with Jace is with his tool set, if he hits, if he goes bat to ball,
oh yeah,
and right now it's way more power than hit, but if that starts evening out where it's as much hit as it is power, it doesn't matter where he goes. He's playing in the major leagues.
Yes, I agree.
That's what
Obviously.
Jace is. Yeah,
He has 4 really well developed tools.
Yes,
and the one is just hitting for average.
Yeah, his bat to ball's got to improve, and I think I need to do another round of calls. But I'm keeping an eye on Cincinnati at 9.
I like him in the first round.
I think that's the ceiling for how high as he could go.
I don't see a scenario where he falls out of the first round. And if he does fall out of the first round, Nick Savage is going to be my roommate in Atlanta next Sunday night, and we're not going to be very happy because it means we will have watched 4 hours of draft coverage in our hotel and not had anything to do.
Nick?
He said we would trash the place.
Oh, did you? Can't do that, Nick.
Well, we can't do that. We can't.
Company card.
We can't afford
Company
to do
card,
that.
though, for incidentals.
Beyond Jace, players I'm watching, I really like Justin Lampkin.
I think he's going to be the second one pick.
Such a projectable prospect since he got on campus, too. I like big left-handers. He's an impressive player. And what he's done the back half of the year, his junior year, was super impressive. He showed he can compete on the biggest of stages last year in Omaha. I really like Justin Lampkin. I could see him going in the top 2 to 3 rounds.
I don't think there's any doubt that he helped himself more this year than anybody else on the roster in terms of his draft projectability. But I said he's going to go second from this A&M team, the second guy picked from this A&M team. I could be wrong. and I hope I am. I hope I'm not, though. Shane Sadeo is the most interesting name that is on the draft board for Texas A&M. For, I think, if you ask major league clubs, it's like, yeah, he's really interesting. He's very intriguing. Then if you ask Mike Early, he's like, yeah, that's the one that I've got a pen in going, what's going to happen? Because if A&M gets him back, he's probably your Friday night starter.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't remember, with Shane Zadeo, it was like, just go pull up that Ole Miss game right on the road in 2024. He was really good.
The late innings against Texas.
Late innings, fantastic. And obviously, it hurts to think about what A&M could have done. I mean, they were one win away from. They were 7 outs away from a national championship. What they could have done if Shane Sadeo was healthy throughout the rest of that run. But it's been how many months since he's last pitched? What's his number? Don't really know. That's a personal thing.
That's the one thing that we don't know about all these kids.
One team to fall in love with him, take a flyer on him, and that's it.
The interesting thing is, like, these kids and their agents and their families could have numbers. Like, hey, my name's Richard Zane, and I'm a really good left-handed pitcher, and I think I'm a $2 million player, signing bonus-wise.
My name is Richard Zane. I was a well below average left-handed pitcher, and yes, my signing bonus is $2 million.
So what I'm saying is, you can be holding that number and say, hey, you know what? I have a great insurance policy by coming back to Texas A&M, and I can develop here. I love being an Aggie. I love coming to school here. I think Shane Sadeo would say all those things. But what happens is, I'm going to stick to that number, and then on draft night or the night before, these clubs start calling and say, hey, man, would you take 1.5? If your number's 2, would you take 1.75? That's when it gets really hairy. So you can have all these kind of expectations going in, both personal and professionally, for these kids in the draft, and then it all can change with a couple of phone calls. But it'll be very interesting to track, to me, Shane Sadeo. Outside of that, I do expect to hear Caden Kent's name called. We'll hear Ryan Prager's name called. I think we're going to hear Miles Patton. Miles Patton's another interesting one. He's going to sign. 99.99% sure of that. But I did talk to a regional scouting director this week that thought there was going to be not a lot of teams that had his name turned in the top 10 rounds. So, and he can still come back to school, but he would lose leverage. I think, again, 99.9% sure that Miles Patton will sign. And then for A&M's roster next year, what we're tracking is Weston Moss, Caden Wilson, Shane Sadeo, as we mentioned, and Ben Royo. Very interesting.
That is interesting. Ben Royo had a really good year. For a guy that I don't think expected to play very much.
And if you try to extrapolate his numbers out, the swing and miss is super high and it's got to go down. But if the ball's hit at him, he's going to catch it and throw it. He can run bases. When he does hit it, it goes a long way. Like, you extrapolate his numbers out to a full season, he would have been pushing 20 homers. Now, the strikeout rate is really, really high. But hopefully, with what you've been able to do in the transfer portal and the guys you got coming back, that swing and miss rate across the entire club will go down. So we'll see what happens with Ben Royo, but that could be another little boost to the bats and the lineup going into next year. All right, come back, Richard. We will close the go hour. Get ready for one of our favorite people, Will Johnson, to kick us off in the 9 o'clock.
Oh, that guy.
That guy. All right, we come back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, final segment of the Go Hour. TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. Don't forget, if you want to interact with the show, Reese Nygren's over there in the Good Bull. Good Bull.
Whoa. Way back.
Listen.
Reese Nygren wasn't even a glimmer in the TexAgs eye.
The Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Angry Elephant, I apologize. You got to understand, when you get the B team, like, expect that. I'm surprised I don't call it TexAgs Radio anymore.
Sponsors are leaving us by the dozen.
And when David comes back?
Because Miranda and David have done such a great job selling the show, we actually have dozens and dozens of sponsors to leave
People
us.
waiting on. I bought a new truck over the weekend.
That's sick. And I saw it out there. It's really nice.
Went to Aggieland Chevrolet, who they are a sponsor of TexAgs.
Yes.
And had a great experience out there. And so thanks to Clint and Greg Gunn, the GM out there, was outstanding. Easiest car buying experience I've had. But I will be eating egg sandwiches for a little bit. Look, they got me. They did a great job. I'm very, very happy with the truck that I got, but it's a new truck. So,
hey, Richard, did you notice how it's
talking to us? But you don't have his headphones.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
ahead, keep going.
Did you notice how it's the exact same truck that I have?
Is it really?
And I like your truck.
Oh, Bronny's acting like he didn't know that.
I miss my truck.
Hold on, time out. Your truck's a 2025 with 40 miles on it?
Wow. Look at me. I have a chair. Wow. 45 miles on.
They don't pay me.
Miles on
They
my
don't
truck.
pay me the Ryan Brauninger salary.
Yeah.
So.
Hey,
How do I
listen,
get that?
it has nothing to do with salary, Nicholas. It has everything to do with Matthew Dawson's investing tips.
That's very true.
And none
That's
from
true.
Luke Evangelist?
None from Luke
I
Evangelist.
thought Luke had some good stock tips, though.
He gave us one. A little peek behind the curtain. Luke gave us a tip on ASTS, and it went took off, and then it started tanking, much like Luke's experience so far here as an employee at TexAgs.
I hope everybody who is listening to us and everybody in this world finds a passion that they love nearly as much as Luke Evangelist loves tweeting about the Summer League.
Oh, he does. He does.
Summer League. We started the segment, the hour, talking about Major League Baseball. We're going to wrap it up talking about the NBA 2K26 Summer League.
Hey,
Billy's going to call me as soon as the segment ends and tell me that I'm fired. You're welcome.
Thanks for not mentioning my my mustache.
What?
Does it look? I didn't mess. So I was trying to clean it up, and I did one of these things where I looked. My wife was talking.
Holly's gonna be mad at you.
And I looked, and I cut it to short, and I was like, now I got to just.
Holly's gonna be mad at
the
you.
whole thing off, and I thought it was going to look weird. Thank God it happened a few days ago, so it's grown back in a little bit. All right, when we come back, right back on the A&M train. I promise you, if you're upset and you're frustrated by the subject matter of the Go Hour, we're turning it around. All Aggies for the 9 o'clock hour, starting with Will Johnson.
BP Johnson.
On the other side of the break, you're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Yeah, we're rolling right along on a Monday morning on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Ryan Brauninger, Richard Zane sticking around because he's such a big fan of this next guy.
Huge
this next
fan.
Guest.
Huge fan.
12th
I
man.
convinced
You're
him
like-
to stay. Yeah,
You're like in my top 20 favorite A&M personalities.
19th.
That's a little high.
One
I said
spot-
top 20.
One spot ahead of Thomas Dick.
I don't put myself ahead of Thomas.
He doesn't.
Dick on my
Thomas
list,
doesn't even
yeah.
belong in that list because he's so far above.
Yeah, he's a
Oh,
whole
wow.
different category.
He's
Completely
Will Johnson,
different category.
Will this here for a semester? Will, we were just talking before the segment started. It's summertime radio, and we haven't gotten to talk to you much, though. So what's going on over there at 12th Man P in the summer, in July, as you get ready for fall sports to kick off?
It's unfortunately the summer got started a little too early for us at 12th Man Productions. Baseball didn't do what you hope they'd do and get to the postseason. Softball kind of took an early exit. So I compare this summer to last summer. We were all in Omaha at the College World Series. You go all the way to the final game. You get back and you feel rushed to get ready for football season. All you really had was July, and then in August, camp kicks off. This felt like an extended summer because June was kind of available to you.
Which one would you rather have?
I would rather have the rush.
Yeah.
The rushed summer and your diamond sports and everything going as far as possible. So business-wise, you don't necessarily like being rushed, but I'd much prefer that. This has been a little bit extended, so for the wrong reasons for all of us. But a lot of July is getting ready for football season, as we know. There's video board stuff to get ready. There's the Pulse to get ready for. Recruiting has been going, and we have a crew that handles that. Cade Key's phenomenal with that. So that's basically been what it is. The rush will kind of start now with July. It really cranks up as we kind of get toward preseason camp.
Well, for you as a guy who's obviously involved in the week-to-week production aspect, but even the game day production with Monaco and Dave on the radio, is there an element to this football team that has you really excited? Not the obvious, but maybe like something like, hey, I think they're going to be pretty good at this.
One of them is the obvious for me, though, their ability to rush the football this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know the offensive line is back. 3 good running backs are in that stable, and your quarterback in Marcel can run the football himself. So I get excited, one, about the obvious. One thing I look at, though, that I just think they're going to be better on the defensive line than people expect them to be. Now, surface level, you lose 3 draft picks off the defensive line, so people are going to say you're going to take a dip there. Going out to spring, I saw more spring practices, I feel like, than I ever have, because we had to broadcast the spring game on SEC Network Plus, and in the day of the transfer portal, I mean, you got to figure out who's who.
You know what? We haven't even discussed this. Whose idea was it to put Seth McKinney on that show?
I think Stephen McGee had an influence in that.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he did.
Well, I can just tell you that decision has been analyzed by one of the owners of this company.
Well, for about the entire first quarter, we had a microphone problem with Seth. I don't know if that was planned or if that was an actual malfunction, but. Going out to a lot of spring ball, I looked at a lot of the defensive linemen, really starting with Marco Jones, the young one, the freshman. I mean, and I was impressed. And I thought nobody's going to talk about this defensive line, and if they do, they're going to talk about what they lost in 3 draft picks. But I think people are sleeping on what they've gained through recruiting, through the transfer portal. Albert Regis is a guy, Cassius Howell's a guy that are returning, that are really going to get their shot now. I think they're excellent players. So something that people are sleeping on, I think, is the defensive line, because I think they're going to be much better than advertised in the preseason.
We've heard those 2 names a lot, but also names like DJ Hicks and Ryland Kennedy.
Yeah,
now that
they're
the
going to
guys
get their
are from
shot.
them, exactly. Yeah. Are there, speaking with the excitement, right? That theme. Are there any specific games you look at this schedule and as a broadcaster, or you get to travel, or you get to be at Kyle Field on game day?
At Notre Dame.
One of them you're going to be able to guess.
Really get you excited for the year?
I've never been to South Bend, Indiana. Never been on Notre Dame's campus. Never seen a game there. We went there in 2000. I did not travel at that time. The Notre Dame game is something I've circled once that came on the schedule years ago. So I've always wanted to go to South Bend, Indiana. I think an interesting dynamic is going to Arkansas now. We've played at AT&T Stadium for so many years. The game goes away from the DFW area. obviously this did happen when we joined the league. 2013, we went to Fayetteville.
Yep.
And Arkansas had a bad football team that year. But it was a very impressive atmosphere. It was loud. Now, this is the days of A&M and Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans running around. And so they were a draw.
Yes.
Arkansas wasn't good, but with the Aggies coming to town.
It was rainy that day.
It was not not good weather. Stadium was full, though. Now, this was more of an early season game, and I don't think they really knew how bad.
It's the first time I'd heard you describe it as Vietnam, which I thought was
I don't know if I'm excited about going to Fayetteville again or Nam, whichever one you want to call it. But I do think it's interesting now that the game leaves the DFW and we go up to Arkansas for the first time in 12 years. But it was a raucous atmosphere when we went in 2013. I was impressed with their place. We'll see what kind of team they have in October when the Aggies go there. But it's a potentially dangerous place to play. So that's an interesting dynamic to the schedule now that we leave DFW with the Arkansas game and head up.
When you talk about A&M's schedule and you go, all right, which game, like Richard asked, are you most excited about, and which games are the most important? I think they're different. Like I am excited about that Notre Dame game. I don't think it's super important. I wouldn't have Notre Dame.
Early.
It's early, but you lost to Notre Dame early last year, and you got to the back half of the season, and you're going, if you win one of those games, you're in Atlanta. Yeah. So how much did Notre Dame really hurt you? And if you go to Atlanta, I'm still of the opinion that the playoff committee is not going to leave out the SEC runner-up. Mm-hmm. So even if you're 9-3 and you lose that SEC title game, I still think you're going to go to the playoff. You'll probably be the 12.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to get in. So I don't think that the Notre Dame game this year either is particularly important in the overall grand scheme of the season.
I think the importance, I would include Notre Dame in some importance as well, because I think if you're going to make the playoff, you got to get one or two of those big road games, meaning Notre Dame, LSU, or Texas, whichever one that is. Now, that's predicated on you taking care of business at home. There's interesting home games with Auburn, Florida, South Carolina.
How good is Auburn?
How good? Yes.
What kind
Florida's supposed to be better, but how much better?
I think Florida's going to be pretty good.
Yeah,
they'll be able to run the football.
But you get them at home.
And Lagway, Lagway's a really good player. Like I believe in Lagway more than I believe in Arch Manning, at least right now.
He's shown it more.
Yeah, sitting here in July.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think a super interesting one, South Carolina.
South Carolina is a very intriguing home game.
So, I think those are more important.
But if you take care of business, if you're undefeated or just one loss at home, I think it's still somewhere out there. You got to pick up one or two of those key road games, Notre Dame, LSU, or Texas.
And which one of those is more winnable right now in July, Notre Dame or LSU?
Early in the season, I would think Notre Dame is.
I know
they've
got more questions, right, about what they got coming back, especially
how much of those are answered in September. You still may be sorting through some of that.
It also feels more like Notre Dame when you factor in what A&M hasn't been able to do in Death Valley going back to the 90s.
Hadn't done it. I mean,
and you get Nussmeier, who's if the past is a predicative of the future, then he is really tough to beat at home, and you got a chance to get him whenever he's going on the road. And so we saw that last year.
Got him last year. So I would put Notre Dame as the most gettable right now, because later in the season, LSU and then at Texas are going to have themselves figured out. Maybe Notre Dame won't.
I saw one of
Notre Dame's going to be a top 10, top 5 team when you go there that early in the season. Unless they botch their game with Miami early on, but I don't see that.
Yeah, Carson Beck going to pull out a Cam Ward performance. I don't think he's got that in him. But there are some super intriguing games early in the year across the SEC slate and across the A&M schedule. And one of the things that I was talking with, like we have every Tuesday, we have content meeting here at TexAgs, and we start talking about, okay, like what's some of the subject matter we could use in the summer to fill these holes that we've got? And I was like, what about every team's record that A&M is going to play when they play A&M? And so obviously you're going to have, UTSA and Utah State. I have no idea who Utah State opens up with, but it's be the best UTSA team they've had in a while. I don't think, the early lines on the game are A&M favored by 21, but I don't think this is going to be some run over UTSA. And Traylor's done a good job with that roster.
Well, he gets some talent in there. The last time the Aggies played them, they were holding them off late in the game at Kyle Field. I think thank goodness Myles Garrett had about 5 sacks in the game.
Thursday,
yeah, it was
cold November day.
Yeah, it was one of those late November non-conference games, and the Aggies struggled through it.
Utah State plays UTEP week 1.
No, well, so they'll probably be 1-0. The interesting one.
Well, Notre Dame plays Miami, and then do they not play before the Aggie? I thought they had a bye week.
Recent Igren says they've got a bye right
to
before
bye.
the A&M game.
Okay.
One of the weirdest
So
things.
Notre
I've
Dame's
seen.
probably going to be 1-0 again. They go to Miami though, right? I mean, as long as they don't botch that.
Well, the interesting about Auburn, and this is a game we have one of the biggest stat nerds, but he's awesome ever in the back. Matthew Dawson, he works here. He's incredibly intelligent and loves this. Like he dives so far into all of these teams on A&M schedule, and
I need his notes.
He'll probably provide them for you if you ask nicely.
His notes right now are that Pete Crow Armstrong's going to win the National League MVP.
He's got a small wager on that.
He's a huge
but what I was saying is with Auburn, that's the first SEC game, and like I'm super intrigued by Auburn. Like I think they're
with Baylor.
Right. That's what he loves Baylor in Waco, and I think this is an important season up there for Dave Aranda.
Oh man, is it?
And there's a lot of people that think they're going to be pretty good. Waco and Lubbock are going to be two storylines to watch in the Big 12 this year without question. But if Auburn can get by that game in Waco, then they've got Oklahoma. They go to Oklahoma, and then is that right? Yeah.
The Baylor game's a Friday night to open.
It is, and then they go to Oklahoma the week before A&M. So Auburn could come to Kyle Field with 2 losses.
Man. So you're playing the backs against the wall Tigers possibly.
Early in the year.
And they're going to come out with everything.
What kind of leash does Hugh Freeze have if he has another stinker?
Well, you mentioned important seasons. Probably a big one for him too.
I don't think they're going to run him off, but I think they could put him squarely on the hot seat.
Yeah, he could present a lot of problems for himself if he's not successful this season.
So that's why I think there's some intrigue with this schedule. What is Florida when they come in? I don't think Mississippi State's going to make some big jump from year 1 to year 2.
They're struggling.
They are, and I think that's probably outside of Vanderbilt now. That's the toughest football job in the league.
That's an interesting case study right there.
Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not say Kentucky? Kentucky in there?
Kentucky would probably. So it'd be Vanderbilt, Kentucky, then Mississippi State. But Kentucky, at least recently, has won more than Mississippi State consistently.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy job, though. That Kentucky job's not easy. But Florida, to me, the most important games Florida at LSU, South Carolina at home. If I was ranking the 3 most important.
That's that middle of the pack schedule, the meat in the middle, so to speak, because you get 2 of them at home. Got to take care of both of them, and if you do, you're set up really well for a late season run. But Florida, do they play Miami again this year? They may go on the road.
They go to Miami.
They hosted
right?
Miami, got blown out last year before A&M went to the Swamp.
Let's look at Florida's schedule.
I think they have Miami on the schedule.
They get Texas at home
before the Aggies.
Let's see. They open with Long Island, then South Florida, at LSU, at Miami versus Texas. That's all leading.
They have a 3-game stretch that's really tough before the Aggies.
They do, but they have a week off, so it goes at LSU, at Miami, by Texas at home, at Texas A&M. That's a tough stretch. For
man,
Florida.
that is rough. That is rough.
Yeah, they've got the schedule does them no favors. Georgia at Ole Miss, they get Tennessee, and then Florida State to end the season. That's a tough slate. Man. Another coach though in the league, well, Billy Napier. Like, how much leash does he have?
They were ready to run him out of town last year.
Yeah, they got hot late.
Well, when the Aggies beat them in the Swamp, there were rumblings of that when the Gators walked off the field. You could hear it from the fan base. But yeah, he got hot late, and now he's got his quarterback and DJ Lagway, so there's some hope for him. But man, they had a crazy tough schedule last year, and everything just flips the sights this year, so obviously doesn't get any easier. I mean, it's a coin flip of what the Gators' record would be right now coming to A&M.
Yeah.
You should get those for, obviously, there's the Long Islands and the South Floridas. You should get those games, but can they get a Texas game, an LSU game?
The most gettable for them is Miami.
Yeah, even though this year it's in Miami for Florida, but
are they the most
3-2?
Are they the biggest unknown in the league this year? Like top end unknown?
Florida?
Yeah, you might say
Oklahoma, Auburn.
Because their success late was still a small sample size. It wasn't a long run that sustained the season.
I think they're one of the more intriguing Like them, Oklahoma, Auburn, especially these teams that are welcoming in new quarterbacks. Oklahoma, John Mateer, they're placing a ton of confidence in. What happens at Tennessee?
Oh, after the
Nikos,
quarterback,
yeah. And they had issues offensively last year, major issues. That's why I think this league going into the year is so wide open, is just because there's been so much quarterback movement. And I think A&M is sitting here just quietly under the radar. You mentioned running the football, return Marcel.
Well, and there's a lot of retention.
Yes.
Mike Elko's talked about that. One thing people aren't discussing with A&M in this day of revolving doors at some schools, A&M didn't have that. A&M didn't have a lot of exodus.
That's right.
They get a lot of players back from a team that was that close a year ago.
And I like there's just kind of flying under the radar.
That's fine, but we don't need them talked about and in the spotlight right now. That's fine.
Will, thanks for coming in. Richard,
Appreciate
thanks for hanging
you
out. On
guys.
the other side of the break, we're going to flip it over to hoops on the hardwood with Mark French. Talk buckyball this summer. Very intriguing roster now going into 2025, 2026 for Aggie basketball. We'll talk to former Aggie guard Mark French when we come back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, back on TexAgs Live. As a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave's. That is at 10:50, but right now, caller number 12 at 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or one large, one-topping pizza from Double Dave, serving Aggieland beyond since 1984. We go out to the Buppy's Catering Hotline. Join great friend of the program and former Texas A&M basketball player Mark French, who was able to join me again today after Logan Lee told me no. So I don't want you to think that you're the backup to Logan, Mark, but you are the guy that's like willing to step up for the team.
That's what I'm here for. So I was on Friday with Nuno, so I got the back-to-back duty, but happy to do it. I know it's the summer months, and I'll give Logan some grief for you.
Well, we always need that. I need help in that department with Logan. But, hey, so I know y'all talked about specifics with the basketball program last week, but there's been some interesting stuff. I saw Andy Katz tweeted this morning about the GM role now in college basketball. And Bucky brought in his guy with him to fill that role. Yeah. How have you seen the structure of this thing change? And is it finally settling into what you think it's going to look like from a player acquisition, roster management, kind of giving the resources to that element of your program? Has it kind of settled into like, hey, you have to have one of these guys now?
Yeah, I think it's a non-negotiable. I think that's where we're headed, and it may even be a GM and an assistant GM / talent evaluation guy, and then maybe even a GA attached to it, because it's not the days of just going and scouring the high school grassroots scene is over. And essentially what's happening, Brawny, is throughout the year, you have one of these guys, you have a video guy that's doing, your games and practices, stuff like that. And then you have a separate guy who is scouring the country for players within your conference or other conferences that you want to target in the transfer portal should they come available, so to speak. And so it's an evolution for sure. And I know all my friends in the industry, I have a lot of friends across the country, some of them in videos, some of them assistants now, but it caused a lot of strain, but I think we are kind of reaching equilibrium, and a lot of it's tied back to, the revenue sharing. And are we going to see contracts? Is there going to be any sort of stabilization of the transfer portal? And I've told you this before, offline. I think, the transfer portal is equally as bad or worse than the NIL. It just, the players are allowed to dictate to the coaches, and it just creates a lot of chaos. But I do think we're close. I think we're getting closer.
Well, and I'm a baseball guy, right? And I understand from a baseball perspective how the game is viewed through the lens of analytics. And just scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I saw somebody had put together kind of a heat map of shot selection. I think it was from like 1998 in the NBA to today in the NBA. And in 1998, there was so many like 12 to 15-foot jumpers. It was a even distribution of shot selection to now. Everything is at the basket or behind the three-point arc. Is that here to stay? Because like on the baseball side, this analytic stuff ain't going nowhere. And people think they figured out the best ways to score runs in baseball. And it seems like basketball's going, hey, this is the best way to score points.
Yeah, and I think what you just said, what's the best way to score points? And I think as people have looked at it, it's the three-point shooting and the spacing, playing fast. In the college game, especially if you have a talent advantage, the numbers are going to tell you all day long that we got to get shots up. We don't want to, and some of it just depends. If you don't have the roster to do that, maybe you want to buck that trend, right? But I 100% think it's here to stay. I think you talked about evolution of a coaching staff. That's another area in which the video coordinator isn't just cutting clips nowadays. That's like a full-time analytics role almost. And even a lot of the assistants that I know, they're in on all that. And so the good news is you have, Spectrum. There's all these different, softwares in basketball that you can purchase, and they kind of conglomerate all that, and you're able to sift through it. But there's some crazy advanced stuff. I mean, like you see this in baseball, but like basketball, what's his one dribble pull up to the left shot percentage while contested? That's just like an example, right? Mm-hmm. But it's almost too much. And then we're in this information overload age of like, well, what do you do with all that? And I think that's where guys like Todd Golden, Nate Oates, That's where they've been really successful. They were early adopters of this mass influx of information, but then they tailored it to what they wanted to do. And I think that's actually the challenge and where coaching is headed. Who can cipher through that?
Yeah, there's certainly an element to the coaching aspect is, okay, we have all this data, and it's the old phrase of what can be measured can be improved, right? I agree with that, but if you overfeed the information to a kid, you're not really improving him. You're misfiring his circuits, right? You're making something that was probably really easy for him very, very difficult. Let me ask you this about Bucky McMillan's system with what we just talked about with the analytics. To me, is this like when Mike Leach started to get it going at Texas Tech and everybody's like, man, this is kind of like it's a quirky system and he doesn't have to have the best players and they're still going to score. Is that what Bucky is, or is it more traditional what the game is going to now? Basically, is he an outlier on today's game, or is he where the game's trending?
I think he's where the game's trending, but he's on the edge in a good way, right? And I think he's been doing this a long time. Look, he was at Mountain Brook in Birmingham for a while, and obviously what he's done at Samford, and I think we're gonna get shots up. You talked about information overload and short circuiting a player. I think there has to be a freedom aspect to that. And players are not robots, and you cannot control them. And I think one thing that Bucky, just in watching some tape on Samford, those players have no hesitation. So, yeah, we're going to play fast. But the thing is, you can't have players that are you have an open shot and they kind of hesitate. Nope, it's just we got to be straight up with it. And so I think that's what we're going to see is he's going to empower them to hey, I don't care if you miss it. If it's the right shot, you have to take it. And I think it's going to be fun for the A&M fan base, I think, because look, they averaged 83 points per game last year. You look at what Auburn did, you look at what Florida did, Bama certainly. It's a race to 100 with them. And I think what's going to be fun is we're going to kind of be in that mix now, and we got some players to go hopefully try and go do that. So you'll score some points, and I do think that's where it's headed. But with college guys, it's a little different than NBA. You don't have all day to sit around and go through it. So you got to give them bite-sized information.
Yeah, and I feel like last year and under Buzz, a lot of the times the ball would get stuck on one player on the offensive end. Where I joked with Logan. I was like, A&M has to average the most dribbles per possession of any team in the country. I'm a basketball novice. It's the sport that I understand the least. So you explain to me how different this is about to look from what we just saw.
Yeah, and it's not to say either system's necessarily wrong. We won a lot of games Buzz's way, and I think to play the analytics card, some people would say, well, why are you taking the ball out of Wade's hands? Essentially, that would be some of the analytics would support that, or even Manny when he was hot. As far as aesthetically pleasing, I see what you're saying. It's not always the most fun, and I'm a basketball purist. So 2014 Spurs, 2018 Warrior, I want the ball popping around. I want to play fast. I want to see unselfish basketball, but I do want to score points. And so I think we're going to see a lot of those attributes with Bucky. And I think, from just that perspective, I think it's going to be fun, and it'll be very different because I think not just the fast breaks, but the secondary break. All right, so they make a shot, right? We're going to outlet, and it's going to be an advanced pass, shot. So essentially what you see Alabama do. Florida does this to an extent. Auburn, I'm saying these same names. Tennessee plays a little bit more slower and methodically, but I think if you were looking for a comparison, it'd be more that Alabama, push it up the court, one drive kick, and then hit the three. And so, yeah, you got to be in really good shape, but it works.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, and there's been obviously he's done a great job with the roster just to get it to what it is. But I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there one guy that whenever A&M got that guy, you're like, that is Bucky's guy? Like, I'm excited to watch this kid in Bucky's system.
Yeah, it's M'Baku, just because of, I know everyone says that, and I can pivot to a different guy if needed. That guy, he'll be an NBA player, and, he crushed it at the combine, and chiseled body is everything you want. Going and poaching one of Indiana's best players, that's crazy, right? I'll say this, one guy that there's really, the other two that really caught my eye, Brawny, Rylan Griffin. You go get that guy from Kansas, he was on Bama's Final Four team 2 years ago. And then also Pop Isaacs at Creighton was hurt, had averaged 17 a game. Those were the ones where I'm getting texts going, dang, Bucky, I wasn't expecting that. Bucky went and got some dudes. And so that kind of brought a smile to my face that, we went and got Marcus Hill at North Carolina State, another one. These guys are proven 10-plus points per game guys at the Power 4 level. And so, roster construction has been very good in my opinion.
Frenchie, appreciate you, dude.
Great to see you, sir. Talk soon, friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark French joining us on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. When we come back, we did football with Will Johnson. We did basketball with Mark French. Now we're going baseball. Kendall Rogers on the other side of the break. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Bottom of the 9 o'clock hour on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. We're going to go back out to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. Talk to Kendall Rogers of Division I Baseball. The season's over, Kendall. I'm surprised that you don't have your feet up somewhere in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but thanks for joining the show today. Kendall, you there? All right, we are efforting Kendall. That was a great opening line. He vacations in a similar area that I vacation. So, and he's given me great recommendations up to this point in the Virgin Islands. I highly recommend that place. I've talked about this so many times on this show. Nick, just give me a big thumbs up when we get Kendall, or tell me in my ear. So, I stumbled upon the Virgin Islands whenever I got married because I didn't have an updated passport. So we were looking for somewhere tropical to go without a passport. And my wife was like talking about Hawaii, and we started looking at Hawaii, and it's so expensive. Yeah. And then we compared the price between the Virgin Islands and Hawaii. We're like, we'll just go to the Virgin Islands. It's a shorter flight. Yeah. I'd heard Hawaii is awesome, but you're going to spend all day on a plane to get out there. So it's essentially
how it works.
There and back is 2 days. You're on a plane. So we go to the Virgin Islands for our honeymoon and just absolutely fell in love with it. It turns out Kendall vacations in the same spot. We stayed on St. Thomas. He stays on St. John, but it's so close.
Yeah, they're right there. And
I can't recommend it enough. It is just simply a sensational spot. It's quaint because it's small. Yeah. They have American. Oh, I got a text from Kendall, Nick. He says, I can hear you, but it looks like you can't hear me. We're trying again. Is Kendall, is he there? Kendall, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go. I was just talking about you and your trips to the Virgin Islands, and I thought maybe I caught you with your feet up on St. John. All right. We could hear Kendall. I heard him for a second.
For a brief second, he was there.
Okay, it says call him back. Is he on the line? No?
I'll call him back real quick.
Okay. This is this is the B team version of TexAgs Live. I can't stress that enough. But I did want to talk to Kendall about MLB draft stuff coming up and kind of how that fits on his calendar at D1 Baseball, because I know where the draft sits for college coaches. It's a total nightmare.
Oh, I bet.
Because they have got to weather the transfer portal, incoming freshmen, and then what are you going to do with available? You don't know how many scholarships you're going to have available. You could have your roster set and it gets completely blown up by the MLB draft. So I know Kendall's not technically working. There's not much college baseball going on. It's just the summer league stuff. But all right, Kendall, are you there?
You got me? I feel like we're in a cell phone commercial here.
No, I got you. Can you hear me?
No.
All right. We can hear you. I'm going to tell him. Yep. We can hear you, brother. I just shot him a text, but maybe he hung up now. He got frustrated with it. Listen, I'm hosting on Wednesday and Friday again. We will try to get Kendall on because, as I was saying, and what we talked about with Richard earlier is that Kendall says he's talking to us, but
he's not on the line anymore.
Not anymore.
I hung up on him, so
okay.
But yeah, we'll circle back with him.
We'll try to figure it out later on in the week. If you could just tell him that, Nick, and I will tap dance the rest of the segment to talk about MLB draft stuff, because as we were talking about with Richard earlier in the 9 o'clock hour, A&M's roster next year has a chance to be pretty good. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be the most talented roster in the SEC, but it's certainly what is your goal each year? It's to put together a roster that can get you to the postseason and get you to Omaha. This year, A&M's roster, once it got beat up with injuries, you can make an argument against, but at least going into the year, that roster was good enough to get to Omaha. And that's the goal. You got to coach them. You got to have some luck with the injuries. You got to develop them. You got to make good decisions on game day. All that's true. No question. But the goal, just from a sheer roster talent standpoint, has to go, are we constructing a group that can get us into the postseason and get us to Omaha?
Yeah.
And I think A&M's doing that. But what could determine how high the top end of that roster talent is what's going to happen on July 13th of the draft.
Yeah, and I mean, a little bit of that also comes with who makes it to campus. You mentioned that also in the go hour, but you also mentioned luck with injuries. We saw A&M make it 7 outs away from a national championship without their best hitter and one of their better pitchers. Mm-hmm. So it's also about having the depth in that roster. So we'll see how that pans out.
And so you start talking about the depth of the roster, and that's why I think the most underrated acquisition they've made this offseason is Zane Becker behind the plate. Mm-hmm. Like getting a guy that was legitimately one of the best prep catchers in the country from Arkansas after a year, whenever you've got Bear, it kind of entrenched as your starter. Massive, man. Like you saw it with Jackson Appel and you saw it with Bear Harrison. Like they just taper off as you start getting into May.
Yeah.
They've caught so many innings, and it's natural that it's going to catch up to them.
Yeah, the wear and tear of being a catcher, that's why having two of them, like we talk about the Astros, they have Diaz and Carantini, who are both really good catchers. So I think the depth of this roster, especially in the outfield, you find some guys like Jake Dewar, bat to ball skills. So I'll be curious to see kind of how the roster as a whole pans out.
Well, best case scenario, you get Sadeo back. I'm very much leaning toward Weston Moss coming back. Mm-hmm. You never say 100% because that's going to only get you in trouble, but I feel very good about where they're at with Weston Moss. Caden Wilson, I think, is a coin flip, but you could get him back.
Yeah.
You get those 3 arms back, and you look at what they've brought in out of the portal, what's returning off of last year's roster. Like, I love the upside of Cade McCoy and Gavin Lyons. And I'm sure I'm missing Aiden Sims. Like, they've got some pieces where you're going, okay, that's pretty intriguing. Like, again, not saying it is Paul Skeen's LSU staff
it's
level.
Not world-beating stuff.
But it's good enough to do some damage. And then, the high school guys that we're looking at in the draft, and, do they get Blaine Bullard to school? Because if they get Blaine Bullard to school, who's an outfielder from Klein Kane, I don't think that you got to go add another outfielder via the portal.
Yeah.
And but again, how does Mike Early make that decision?
Because, a tough one.
All right, we're not going to go get another outfielder. We think Blaine Bullard's coming to school. The Arizona Diamondbacks call Blaine Bullard and say, we're going to give you $3.5 million to sign.
See ya.
He's gone. Yeah. So, it's not just Mike Early that's having to sift through this. It's Kevin O'Sullivan, and it's Jay Johnson and Dave Van Horn. All these coaches are having to do this, but that's why I think, Major League Baseball made the decision to move the draft back to All-Star Week to get more eyeballs on it. And all it did was cause more chaos, and it threw too many irons in the fires for the coaches where you're taking the players from.
Yeah.
So where your crop of talent, where you're going to get it from, you've caused them more headaches than you did whenever it was at the, right during the College World Series. Yeah, kids had to worry about where they were going to get drafted while they were playing, but at least the coaches could then make their complete roster for the next year without having to worry about it. They knew who was going and who was coming.
Yeah, it kind of eased up the offseason for the coaches because they knew, okay, by the time the season's over, I know who's coming back to school and who's gone, and now you're getting into the middle of July and you still have no idea. I mean, you have some idea.
Listen, these freshmen are here.
Yeah.
Their freshmen are in College Station. So there's going to be some of these guys that have packed up their lives, moved to College Station, and they're going to be here for 2 weeks, and they're going to get drafted, and they're gone.
Yeah. And I mean, even with the guys like Sadeo, you just have no idea.
Yep. All right. When we come back, we will close the 9 o'clock hour, get you ready for Billy Liucci. He'll want to talk about A&M recruiting. He'll want to talk A&M football. Who knows where it'll go with Billy here at 10 o'clock. But right now, closing 9 o'clock hour. When we come back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Live. Very quickly, I forgot. It's my apologies. Again, the B team version of TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Ryan Brauninger. In the host chair, David's out all week. Right now, at the end of the 9 o'clock hour, we're going over to Miss Kaylee Dreyer for Around Aggieland. Kaylee, how was your 4th of July weekend?
It was great. I had a great time at the pool.
The pool?
Mm-hmm.
You go to the pool often?
Well, it's been kind of cloudy this summer, but yeah.
But you you power through the rain. There must be something that you do at the pool that makes you want to keep going back there all the time.
Hang out with my friends.
Okay, perfect. All right, Around Aggieland.
How was your 4th of July?
It was wonderful. I bought a truck. And then
As we heard, you copied Nick.
No. I flexed on Nick. He tried to get me on that, but it's okay. What color is your truck, Nick?
It's like
it's charcoal.
It's like purple almost, but it's like blue. It depends
like
on the
purple,
sunlight.
But it's like, oh, it's candy paint.
Sure.
Yeah, I knew you were real.
I'm like that.
You're a real H-Town guy. All right, Kaylee, what you got for us?
So this past weekend, obviously, we had a big weekend in recruiting. As we talked earlier, Mike Elko and the Texas A&M football staff added 2 big recruits to the 2026 class. Linebacker Tank King from Port Arthur, Texas, and defensive end Bryce Perry Wright from Buford, Georgia. Some more exciting news as we gear up for the 2025 football season. Season tickets are sold out for the 3rd straight year, with the 12th man already purchasing over 93,000 tickets. More than 55,000 season tickets were sold, with a renewal rate of 93%, as well as 38,000 student sports passes sold out. And then continuing on with recruiting, men's track and field added a transfer from Louisiana, Lawson Jacobs. He was the Sun Belt Conference Freshman of the Year and is originally from Spring, Texas. Most recently, he won first place in the 400 meter and the 4x100 at the Sun Belt Outdoor Championship. So we're excited for all of these recruits to come to campus. And last thing, the College Swimming and Diving Coaches Association of America named 28 Aggies to its Scholar All-America team, which means these student athletes earned a GPA of 3.5 or higher, as well as competed in the NCAA championships.
Thank you very much, Kaylee.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you'd like to discuss?
No, there's not much going on.
There really isn't. It's July 7th,
and Kaylee is without her blonde best friends here for the next few days too. So
Why?
she is.
I know Kay's on vacation.
Callie
Where's
on
Callie?
a cruise, but she's
Kelly's
working.
on a cruise.
Technically,
She's working?
That's what she claims. Yeah.
How does that happen? Like, what's
she's
explain the utility there?
She teaches dance to the younger girls and whatnot, and I think they're on like a cruise doing some competition or something. So she gets to tag along.
Oh, that's convenient.
I know.
Nick, wouldn't you like to go on a cruise this summer? Maybe.
Why don't they do SEC Media Days on a cruise or something like?
Why not? What would be the redneck Riviera you'd sell the SEC Media Days cruise to?
I don't know. You
Galveston?
probably have a Galveston.
Sail from Galveston to Mobile.
Isn't that where the poop cruise started, or it was going? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, she was on the show, dude.
Yeah,
we had a long discussion.
But didn't it start in Galveston?
I don't know.
Yeah, it did. Everyone in here is telling me it did. So
started in Galveston.
Poop Cruise Media Days.
Yeah, I think you started in Galveston. Maybe you go to Mobile. Or have you ever been to Orange Beach?
I have not. So I've been to Daytona Beach. Are you kidding me? There you go. That's where they need to go.
I've never been to Daytona. Is it pretty like SEC?
Yes.
Orange Beach is like where it's great people watching. It's second best SEC people watching to me from Hoover, Alabama at the SEC tournament. But you see some people there, that could be their own dad, man. I'm telling you, there's some interesting folks there. All right, when we come back, we'll try to keep it on the rails. Billy Liucci, TexAgs executive editor, co-owner, will bring us home on a Monday morning TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. 979-693-1150 if you want to interact with the show. Put Reese Nagrin over in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center to work as we are awaiting the arrival of Billy Liucci here on the third hour of TexAgs Live on a Monday morning. Hope every one of you had a safe and happy 4th of July weekend. Again, our thoughts and prayers go out to all those affected by the flooding and the result of the flooding there in Central Texas. Just awful, awful scenes, but it's been heartwarming to see the state of Texas step up as it has done throughout its history for its residents and for people in their time of need. Reese, I believe you have some, was it a text maybe? Some people like the B team?
Yeah, we've had a few comments here and there saying they really like the B team. We had a text from Ross from east of East Texas saying, I'm a fan of all things A&M, Southeast Texas, and Houston sports. B team is an honor in the Corps of Cadets Squadron 2. I'm so happy that the TexAgs B team is on the call. I was hoping that both Bronny and Zane would be on the call today. I'm so thankful that y'all talk about the relevant sports stories.
I'm thinking maybe this, there might be grounds enough to where I could make some TexAgs B team shirts, sell them by the dozens.
I would buy one.
Maybe even less than the dozens.
I mean, maybe we're selling ourselves short.
Maybe the dozen.
The goal would be to sell 12 of them. Or maybe we make them exclusive.
Branding.
What a great idea, Nick. We only make 12 of them. And we bid them. And look, I'll split the profits with TexAgs, Nick. Okay, 70-20, right down the middle.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Don't worry about that other 10%.
Maybe we're selling ourselves short by calling ourselves the B team. Maybe it's like the 1A and the 1B team.
Well, it made sense because it was Bronny and Buchanan, and then obviously David being, the A team. We should call David this week on his week off and just have him talk for a segment.
I agree. I've done that before whenever I guest hosted for the first couple times. I was like, I need David to hold my hand here. He helped me get through it, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind.
For those of you that are unaware, I hosted a radio show twice a week for a long time with Billy Liucci at the TAP, the Bellucci Hour Lunch. And I quickly learned that with Billy, the more you prep, the worse it's going to be. You got to have big overarching topics with Billy, and even still, you never know which direction this thing's going to go. So when he gets here, we will talk recruiting, and we'll see where it goes from there. But Nick, I got to say, I was doing some perusing on the social media world.
Okay.
And your opinions of Jurassic World are not shared by the masses.
That's so not true. I saw so much hate for that movie.
Well, is Sydney Sweeney, who's in it? Oh,
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. So I saw some people complimenting her performance, but I don't know how much is that of her acting? I don't know. She was great in Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, she's a good actor, but it's just a trash movie, a trash storyline. It's just not good.
It's hard to filter through Nick's negativity. Okay, Nick is, he looks at life typically glass half empty. And I'm just going to play rage music to get myself through it. Rage music and White Monsters.
See, here you go again. Now you're going to get me in trouble with my family and my wife bringing up the White Monsters. I haven't had one. Stop. But yes, I do like.
Haven't had one.
Yeah, a little Trump impressions here and there help me as well. But yeah, I think you hit that pretty spot on.
Anyway, so that's why it's hard to take his movie, restaurant.
I also don't watch many movies, so that's.
I don't watch movies either.
I mean, I'm more of a movie watcher than a TV show watcher. Yeah, I kind of like movies, and I mean, Nick's hating on Jurassic World Rebirth, but I'm just there to watch people fight dinosaurs. I'm not there about finding new I don't care about all that. I just want to see big dinosaurs and people fighting. Now, he did say it takes about 40 minutes to get to that, which I think is criminal. I think the opening
if that's
scene,
true. That could be a great exaggeration.
It's so true. I'm not lying.
I mean, the narratives form in this. Reese, if you haven't figured out, narratives are formed in this office really quickly. And a lot of times they are very embellished.
I mean, I think if you're Jurassic World, if you're making those movies, the first scene has to be there has to be a dinosaur in it. And if it doesn't, then what's the point?
You know what series I restarted? I think I'm going to watch all the way back through.
What?
Peaky Blinders.
I haven't seen it.
Not familiar. Nick?
I've heard of it.
I haven't seen it. I've seen lots of clips, and it looks pretty sweet.
You would love Peaky Blinders.
I just can't get past all the English accents.
It is very British. It is very British, but it is fantastic. Really, really good. And probably I don't know why, because I'm not a guy that likes to sit down and just invest a lot of time in front of the television. So that doesn't make sense though when I say that I'd rather watch a series than a movie, because the movie's way less of a time investment.
Yeah, like if nobody watches just one episode at a time, and if you do, there's seriously something wrong with you. Everybody who watches TV shows binges episode after episode.
I would prefer to, like when Yellowstone came out, like let all the episodes come out before I watch one of them.
Yeah.
And so I can. You want to break right now? We're going to break right now. All right, on the other side, I bet we have Billy. That's why we're going to an early break. When we come back, we'll get back on topic, right back on track. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Live. Going out to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. Joined by TexAgs co-owner and executive editor Billy Liucci. I'm guessing is joining us from somewhere in College Station. Billy, pretty exciting 4th of July weekend, but I got to ask you about your trip to the movies. We got differing opinions on Jurassic World here.
It wasn't as good as F1, which I saw last week before I got sick for the holiday weekend, but it wasn't as good as that. But I liked it. You know, it was just, I mean, you knew what you. My problem with movies like that and people trying to break them down is you have to know what you're going to see. I mean, when you have these sequels, regardless of what movie it is, there's that many. You know, rarely is it going to be like the Top Gun sequel, which was not part of a franchise of just sequel after sequel. So you kind of know what you're getting. They get progressively worse. I didn't think this one was terrible, so I knew you're just going to have, they're going to do something. There's some kind of big picture message that's going to be out there. I knew Scarlett Johansson was in it, and I knew there was going to be a bunch of dinosaurs running around eating people that pop up in the middle of nowhere, and they look cool. So yeah, I mean, felt like Myles Garrett in there.
Well, Nick's problem was that he said there wasn't a dinosaur encounter for 40 minutes to start the movie.
It was probably the time I was waiting on my Coke float, so I was a little irritable, so I probably missed it. I probably didn't notice that, but yeah, there was a dinosaur encounter for a while, I guess. But I mean, hey Nick, did you not get enough dinosaur in the movie? Is there not enough for you?
I would say no, Billy. I would say no.
So are you not counting the mosasaur as a dinosaur? Was that not in the first 40 minutes? Or?
Well, I guess if you're talking about the one in New York, like it was just a background. It just wasn't enough dinosaur for me, Billy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what? I think you have a decent point, but it didn't affect the movie for me. It was about what I thought. I'd give it a 5.5 to 6 out of 10.
Well, hey, something you're not going to give a 5.5 out of 10 on is this recruiting class that Mike Elko's putting together. How about that?
Exactly. I hope we don't give it a 5.5 out of 10 because it's a lot closer to a 10 right now.
Exactly.
As we sit here today. No, they're doing a terrific job, and I was actually talking this morning. I was talking to Dan Campbell this morning about recruiting and college football and NIL, and I said, like, where Elko really impresses me, Ronnie, is these classes. Yeah, they're going to be in contention for number one if they get a couple more of these 5 stars. It's not going to be easy. You look at guys like Tristan Keys and Lamar Brown and Tank Jones, and then there's other really highly rated guys like Jace Matthews out there. But to get number one, and I think we all understand, you don't really care about number one. You care about, I think, realities to be one of just, when you look at college football, go, who's got the elite classes this year, and you just want to be one of those teams, and that's enough. That will get you there. Because you have to develop. We understand that. You have to retain and develop. Elko's done a terrific job of retention. Now comes the development part, which I'm confident in, but we have to see it happen. But I thought about it, and I'm like, you've got to go get the 5-star guys. You've got to go get, Sir Parker. I'm trying to think of the other, like the 5 stars in RC's there. Leland McElroy would have been that caliber of guy. I think Greg Hill would have been that caliber. A lot of those guys on defense. Some that, Toya Jones, Brandon Houston were these big 5s, Chris Ruman. You've got to get those guys. But you have to find the Reggie Browns, the Dan Campbells, the Dante Halls. If you look at RC's teams, those were the guys that won. That ended up being the core of the teams. That win, that was higher recruited than people. There's some revisionist history there. Like, I mean, you picked A&M over like Michigan and Texas and Notre Dame, but that wasn't a 5-star. He wasn't a sure thing. There was another guy in his class that was in Trent Driver. But you've got to have that mix. And you look at even, the most successful A&M teams in the SEC. Travion Williams leading the way, was not a 5-star. That 2020 team with Travion running behind an offensive line, that I don't think any of those guys, Bronny, were anywhere close to a 5-star, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think so, and they all ended up playing in the NFL. And then obviously 2012, that was led by Ryan Swope, Mike Evans, and Johnny Manziel. But then you had the 5-stars up front, Boyhe, Matthews, Jokel. So you always have to have that mix. And Elko has not gotten away from that despite the success they're having right now, because even during this wildly successful run, you see them picking off guys in there that are guys that they've recruited for a long time and really like, that are no threat to become 5-star type players. So they're keeping that mix going, and I think you have to have it. I don't think you can win without one or the other.
Yeah, and I think when you look at where you need to win at the high school level, like across the line of scrimmage, I think it's vitally important in this transfer portal era, Billy, because like you look what A&M's going to run out there at receiver, it's a bunch of transfers. And I think those are more readily available in the portal windows. What's not readily available are impact line of scrimmage players, because when they go in, we know this, they are demanding more money. The cost of them when they go in is way higher than everything else just because of the supply and demand issue.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example, and not to go too in depth. I don't like, some schools like airing out, the agents to air out the deals. Texas Tech seems to be really into that, and we can talk about that in a minute. Now, I don't have a problem with what they're doing. It's funny how those numbers always seem to come out, whereas schools like A&M and Texas, and you don't hear much about Bama's deals or Georgia's. They seem to kind of want them to be a little more quiet. And I think that has as much to do with locker room stuff as anything else. But, there was a lineman from Nevada, right? And then there was a lineman from Rice. I think Nevada went to Oregon and Rice went to Ohio State. A&M was in on both of them. They were looking for one potential guy to add to this current room that looks so good. They would have added one. They brought both those guys in on visits, right? You lost them to the Buckeyes and the Ducks, two very big spenders. Well, I happen to know people on both. They were desperate for O-line, immediate O-line help, whereas A&M was just trying to get better at spots and then let, then the whole position group's better as a result. They paid so much more to get both of those guys. You're talking $1 million to $1.2 million to get good, really good, not elite O-linemen. One that played at Nevada, one that played at Rice. And you paid so much more than it cost you to keep guys on your roster and keep them from going into the portal that were, like you said, developed under you and probably, quite possibly, at least possibly, if not probably better than those guys are. And it's so much cheaper. So yeah, to sign them out of high school, develop them and retain them is still a much more cost-effective way to go about it, particularly like you said on the offensive line, where those values just skyrocket way beyond what the actual player's worth.
And that's why, obviously I think A&M wanted Booby Feaster, and they're going to remain in that race, I think, until signing day. But, I think you don't sweat it as much when you lose skill players because, again, like you can just, they're way easier to find, it seems like so far in the portal, and they cost you a lot less money.
Yeah, and I just think, too, when you're watching that tape, like a guy like Concepcion, you saw like Mario Craver, you actually see it translating. and you know that it's immediately going to play. It's immediately going to play. And like you said, you got one from the ACC, one from the SEC. There are more out there. There's no question about it. They almost had, they were very much in the mix for Nick Anderson out of OU. They obviously got for a hot minute before both sides, I think, realized it was not a fit. They went and got Micah Hudson. I think I know they could have gotten, was his last name Key, from Kentucky.
Yep.
But I know they could have gotten him. He ended up going to Nebraska. Maybe they would have taken him had they known they weren't getting Nick Anderson and we're losing Noah Thomas. So just without us just covering our little bubble, right? And our bubble of covering who A&M's recruiting, I just named a half dozen guys or so, just like that, just this year. So, yeah, it's out there. There was the receiver from Ohio State, not Jeremiah Smith, but their secondary guy, he thought about going in. You could get up to 10 names, Bronny, that you and I and Howell talked about that were real possibilities. O-line, it's harder to do that.
Yeah, and then we got to talk about just your thoughts on the additions of Tank King, a guy that had been trending A&M's direction for a long time, but never kind of came off of Jay Bateman's board of importance. And then A&M's rally to get Bryce Perry-Wright over Texas and Clemson.
Yeah, which one do you want to start with? Or are you saying we're going to a break and coming back to that?
Well, we could go to an early break. Are you here?
No, I'm not coming in.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, go ahead. We got time.
No, I think Tank Jones, Tank King, I'm sorry. See, we got all these tanks, which is never a bad thing for a defense, as a lot of people have pointed out. But Tank King is a guy that, obviously you were high on him early just because of where he's from. And then you start digging in, and there's a lot to like about him, right? Like, I think he has a chance to be a really impressive SEC linebacker, both from a size standpoint, physicality, how he plays. And I just liked I like what he said, his actions, what he said throughout the whole recruiting process. I think there's a lot to like about Tank King. And I think he's a guy that, like you said, A&M's been after from day one. He was a guy that from day one was on the Aggie radar. We thought he was a heavy lean from day one, and he never really wavered despite quite a bit of attention. That's one that it won't get. It's not going to get like, what is he nationally? Is he a 3-star or is he up to a 4?
Yeah, it's like a bubble 3-4 star.
Yeah. But you look at, he's got height, he's got length. I think he's going to end up playing at A&M.
He's young, Billy. He's young for that. Like, he could be a 27.
Well, I love that because, again, like, that's all the more reason you think he's going to be. He might be 6'2.5", 6'3", and 235. I mean, you could look up in a year and say, this guy looks prototype. Like, who do you have to fight for again? And you did have to fight off some powerful programs, but not like some of these battles you fought. And also, you didn't have to fight him as much because this is where he wants to be. And it's where he's always wanted to be. And I like that fit too. And there's still got to be a place to find the Texas player that wants to be at Texas A&M. That might, he's not going to start year one, but you look at him and you see how he looks a couple years from now. He's bigger. He's a bigger kid than a Sean Porter, but he's got that. He looks like Sean Porter did a year into the football program. Sean, when he committed to A&M, was like 195. Tank's what? He's got to be north of 210.
Yeah, he's like right around 210. Yeah, and like getting taller. Like you mentioned, 6'3". He could be 6'3" by the time he graduates high school.
Yeah, he physically looks like Sean did after like a year in the weight room. Anyway, I love the get. And again, it reminds me of like Morcho and Krempin and some of these guys that Krempin, I think, is more ready to play. Like, he's going to be an early contender. But you look at the linebacker position, and year 2 Tank King, I think, factors into the mix. I really do.
Well, and then Bryce Perry-Wright, that's the one that got all the buzz, and it should have, because that was A&M was kind of on the periphery, looking on the outside looking in, and he takes an official visit, and kind of slowly but surely after that official visit, more and more A&M momentum starts happening. And I don't think the national sites had A&M in this race a couple of months ago.
No, they didn't. And you know, you and I kept talking about it. We kept seeing more and more Texas. And now the Longhorns are saying, if you go pay close attention, there's a couple of experts over there in that industry that like to take shots at me, you, and Howell low key, and then they want to shake your hands and be friends with you. So keep that in mind next time you come across a couple of them. You know who they are. But all of a sudden they weren't recruiting him. You know, they were slow. That's not true at all. He could have committed to them a month ago, 2 months ago, 2 days ago. That's a straight up head to head, not just over Texas, because they're not the be all end all, but it does need to be pointed out sometimes with the way they move the target there. But over Clemson, Miami, and really could have gone anywhere in the country. Bryce Perry-Wright, I compared him, Bronny, like to DeMarvin Leal, but there's also, you watch him, there's some Matabike in there. If you remember Justin in high school, when he was about 250, people forget that, as Matabike is over here wreaking havoc for the Baltimore Ravens on the inside. He was about 250 out of high school, but he's just, to me, a perfect Mike Elko, you know, as we write it out, SDE, just strong side defensive end in this defense. I think he's exactly what Elko loves. He can anchor, he can get after the quarterback. He's strong and powerful, and can really play the edge, you know, like set the edge. I just see him as fast and really disruptive, man. Yep. What do you have, like 8-9 sacks a year his first 2 years of high school football? 16
and a half sacks over his first 2 years of high school football at one of the premier programs in the state of Georgia. And you mentioned Billy Matabike. Like, it's a combination of a lot of those guys who are just disruptive, was the perfect word used to describe him, because he is constantly in the backfield. There's Matabike, there's some Dalen Mack to it. Like, there's a lot of really intriguing qualities here.
He's such a you know, he's a versatile piece, first of all, but he was such a priority for the staff, you know, like, and they knew that. And again, this is something, Bronny, and I think you and Howell did a good job of conveying it, that like A&M was never out of it. In fact, they were more of a player than anyone typically acted. And I saw people write him off, and I saw other people could cover this stuff, ride the wave, and kind of, you know, take the cheese and think he was going somewhere else. But it was A&M was in a pretty good spot. I wouldn't say a great spot. They were in a pretty good spot for him down the stretch run of this recruitment, and they really prioritized him. So if that's the spin from Texas, that they didn't prioritize him, then maybe they should have, because A&M certainly did. They really did. And I think that was a guy that Elko just saw as a terrific fit in his scheme. And you look, Bronny, at what they're doing at the very top of this class now, man, and it's looking nasty. What they've added recently, I really kind of started with KJ Edwards, right? And you go, I mean, you had Aaron Gregory, but you look at Gregory and KJ Edwards and Arrington and
Tristan Givens,
Tristan Givens, and now Bryce Perry-Wright. Man, that is strong at the top. It's strong and getting even potentially stronger on the D-line. It's already terrific D-line haul. It is as good a D-line haul as you could want in a year, and they still could add a Lamar Brown or a Tank Jones to that would, without question, to me, make it the top D-line haul in the country.
That's on the back. That's on the back of what they did last year.
Exactly. Those 3D tackles that did so much to impress during the spring, and then Marco Jones, who may very well start this year, you know, at some point. If not, then certainly in year 2, early impact in a potentially great player. So yeah, that is encouraging as hell. And then finally what they're doing in Georgia, right?
Yeah, you look at Tristan Givens, Aaron Gregory, Perry Wright, Jordan Carter. That's just and that's what I think people are going, okay, what happens if Kirby gets kind of antsy here late? But Mike Elko has proven that they can win these battles and hold on to these kids, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And you understand that any of those things could happen, but Kirby might not need to get antsy because last I checked, they were recruiting lights out too, and even in their own state.
All right, when we come back, Billy, let's talk. I do want to look at some of the pass catchers that A&M has got in this class, what they've brought in. I think it's a really intriguing part of the roster. So let's look at the position under Holman Wiggins as it stands and going forward. When we come back on TexAgs Live with Billy Liucci. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Let's talk a little Snaps clothing. David Nuno here, and I love wearing Snaps clothing everywhere. I've got the flannel on right now. You've seen me in the Tailgater collection with the A&M gear. It is fantastic. If you see me around town with my sons, Christian and Cruz, they've got a bunch of Snaps gear. When they have big games for Consol, they wear nice clothes, so they wear their Snap stuff. And I'm telling you, with baseball season here, let's all kind of go looking stylish and fit to the games there at Olin wearing the Snaps clothing. As a reminder, they are the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snaps maker out there. Their Tailgater collection is built for game day with breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics to keep you comfortable while you rep your Aggies in style. Now, whether you're watching the game from home or maybe you're in attendance, you're tailgating, whatever it may be, you got to make sure you head to snapsclothing.com to see everything they have to offer. It is fashionable, it is awesome, and you're going to love it.
All right, welcome back to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Got Billy Liucci on the Buppy's Catering and Bartending Hotline. Just wanted to shout this out. We had something come across the premium message board, Billy's premium message board this morning. It is from the head of the Capital City A&M Club. His name is Cody Williams. Long story short, the Capital City A&M Club out of Austin is matching donations made through their website for relief for the victims in Kerr County and in the Hill Country. Great gesture. There is a donation link in that thread, but if you are driving around listening to us, just go to austinags.org, and I'm sure you can go through their website and find that link. So if you make any donation through their link on their website, they're going to match it. The Capital City A&M Club. Billy, really, we talked about it a bit on the show, but heartbreaking scenes, and the more you read, it's gutting. It's hard to stomach what happened in the Hill Country, a place that I know you are so fond of, and so many Texans are because of the natural beauty. But with all of that grief and suffering also comes the best versions of Texans, and I think we're continuing to see that with stuff like this out of the Capital City A&M Club.
No question about it. It's been, like I said, I was under the weather all weekend. So sitting here and I think all of us live in a world here where you make one decision another way and you're spending your 4th of July weekend somewhere in the path of all that, because it is the most beautiful parts of our state, and it's just good times and good people. We've all done it at one point or another, so it hits home, and everybody has kids and siblings and parents and grandparents, and this story kind of touched everyone. And unfortunately, it's not just Texas, it's all over the country. I actually met someone the other day that she was telling me her story up in Cleveland, that she had moved back to Cleveland from Asheville, North Carolina, stood on her roof for 7 hours in those floods. So anytime you hear those stories and you put yourself in you empathize with what they went through, and you start to think, imagine if that was you. And in this instance, when it's Texas, it is you, because it's a lot of people or someone that knows someone and it's just it hits so close to home. And my heart just goes out to the families, the first and foremost the victims, but the families that are, it's just unimaginable what they're having to go through. And here's the other thing too, like the people that are out there working to save people, recovering victims. Could you imagine what that's doing to those that are out there, with that job that no one wants to have, but they race to go do it, because they're trying to find survivors and they're trying to help. And that's got to be jarring for them to be doing this for days now on end. So your thoughts and prayers go out to them. And then you think about, even the media people covering that. I've got a couple friends that are down there that are embedded. We've all got stories. One of my friends, his 2 daughters left Camp Mystic, or it's my friend's brother. His 2 daughters left Camp Mystic 2 days prior to that. So it's gut wrenching, man. So sitting here at home all weekend, you don't want to watch it, you don't want to follow it, but you do, because it's Texas, and it's hitting all of us real hard. So it's brutal. We're going to talk today, just trying to kind of figure out, with our platform, is there something we can do to help? So we're going to, anyway, that's kind of an ongoing thing, man. And your heart breaks for everyone.
Yeah. Right back, kind of flipping it back to what the football conversation. And we did want to take time out to recognize all that's gone on in the Hill Country. Again, it's devastating news, but the Aggies continue to work. And Billy, when I look at this roster, one of the more intriguing positions, I think, is wide receiver, because it's so new. It looks so different than it did last year. And so, I think with what Holman Wiggins has done in the portal, with what he's done in the high school level, like the development aspect of what he's done in his past at Alabama, there is a reason for optimism with that receiver room, both current and future.
No questioning. Current, first thing you got to do is get over the fact that Noah Thomas isn't there, because they had built that room with him to look really damn good, and it still does, but it's kind of a great unknown, Bronny. I think it's going to be better, just not based on their production, based on what I've heard coming out of spring ball and in the offseason. They feel good that that's going to be a significantly improved position based on what's been shown, since the end of seasons, meaning spring and off season. But how much better is what's really interesting, because what is Terry Bussey's jump from year one to year two? What impact does the speed of an Ashton Bethel Roman give you? Does TK Norman bring anything as a true freshman? Because he looked pretty good this spring, to be honest. But more specifically, it's Bussey's jump. What do you get from a 5-star? People forget they've got a 5-star incoming. He's on campus now recently in Jerome Miles. He had the knee injury not quite a year ago. How does he come back? What kind of impact can he have year one? Because they are looking for that big outside receiver, and he's that guy. But most specifically, how big an impact do these new faces have? Bethel Roman, and then the two transfers, Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion. And I've heard nothing but rave reviews on Concepcion. Craver had some big days in the spring. He's got, true speed and quickness. And then I think the thing, Bronny, is these guys are going to have some real over-the-top playmaking ability. I think Concepcion is going to be a guy that can work underneath and kind of do everything. Bussey will still be the wild card to me. Bussey will still be the wild card. How do you get him the ball? You have to get it to him in a variety of ways. He's a wild card, and Amari Niblack as a tight end / wide receiver is also a guy that I'm looking at going, what's your impact, man? Because if they're getting to the ball to him multiple times a game, if he's catching 3 passes in a game, like he's a problem. If they can get him to where he can have complete control, command of the offense, and get himself open, I think he's going to be a problem.
And I think that's a good kind of transition to the tight end room, just up against the break, Billy. But with Thor, the only returner there, and Niblack being a kind of a do-it-all piece, whether he can put his hand on the ground or not, that remains to be seen. But I love what they've done with Nate Burkitcher and Mike O'Reilly. And then with Keati Armstrong, Caleb Tafua, and I'm telling you, man, the staff, they think they've hit a home run with Caden Johnson out of Fort Bend Marshall. It's much like the receiver room for me, like the current and the future. There's enough to be really giddy about if you're an A&M fan.
No, I don't know what to say. You said everything. So
thank you, Billy. Wow.
You literally you left nothing. That was you completely answered the question. The only thing I could do to answer it would have been to say, hey, Ryan, I completely disagree. I can't stand the tight end position. That was literally my only options, and I don't think that. So
well, that's just gonna, to me, with it being up against the break and knowing how your answers can get, I think I saved Nick some heartache there.
He left.
He left. All right. That'll be it for Liucci today. We come back. We'll close the show. We'll tap dance for a couple of minutes before we send it off to the lunch hours on a Monday morning. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, final segment of the show on a Monday morning. Ryan Brauninger in the host chair, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Back out to the Buppy's Catering and Bartending Hotline. Billy Liucci. Liucci, we've gotten a lot of text in the show and people asking about Lamar Brown. Very unique prospect getting set to make his decision, seemingly coming down to Texas A&M and LSU on the 10th, which is Thursday. Have you seen – I've not covered a kid like Lamar in terms of talent. Where they could be, they're a legitimate 5-star on either side of the football on the line of scrimmage. He's just completely unique in that way.
Different positions, Bronny, but he kind of reminds me of Marcus Spears. Speaking of a Baton Rouge product, Spears was a D end, and he was a D end and a tight end, and also a basketball star, but would have been every bit. But you got to remember that, who we now know as the Big Swagoo was a lean, mean D end, tight end, played on an AAU basketball team with some of the best players in I think it was like Emeka Okafor and Daniel Hurt, who was a star at Louisville, and TJ Ford. And some of those guys, and there was Marcus Spears, so he was that good in hoops too. But he reminds me of that because he is he would be a can't miss. He's going to be a star at defensive line, and again another guy that you could put all over the defensive front. So along the defensive line, along the defensive line, or on the offensive line. But I think he's a defensive guy. In terms of his mindset and where he's gonna be, he would almost, to me, have to not work out somewhere wherever he goes on the D line before becoming a really good O lineman. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's too damn good. And that one, I think Bronny can still truly go either way. And I also think, put me on record as this: whoever he commits to, you're going to have everyone up to say, well, this isn't done, kind of like a booby feaster. I think A&M would have a better chance if they need to. And again, if Booby deep down wanted to be in College Station, Texas, and part of that total have chosen A&M the other day, it should still be out there for them. I think the Aggies would always have a desire, but you never know, if they were to get Tristan Keys and or Jace Matthews. But I think they'd have a better chance of pulling Booby back in than Lamar Brown if he picks LSU coming up. There's going to be a lot of talk that people are going to go, this isn't over. And I'd say the same thing if he picks A&M. The thought process is going to be, LSU's still going to be right in and watch. They're going to steal him late. I disagree. I think who he picks this week, it's going to be a long and winding road to the finish. But I will bet money that he'll end up wherever he picks. I just think it's going to be difficult, and whoever that is going to have to hang on to him. But I think he's got more. If you're A&M and you miss out on him, I'd say you have a better chance of flipping the DeSoto, Texas wide receiver back. But I also think if he picks A&M, a lot of our fans, you're going to hear it, and a lot of people in Baton Rouge are going to say, oh, it's not over yet. And they'll be right, but I think he sticks with whoever he picks. That's my call on this one.
Hey, Will Johnson was in here earlier. He says you owe him some money. I guess you got to get with him and get that square. I don't know what he's talking about.
What would I owe Will Johnson money for?
I don't know.
Is he charging me for being a pain in my ass for the last 20 years? I didn't realize I was on the hook. Him and Schobel both are like billing me for. It's like, yeah, not only do you have to put up with us, but we also are going to charge you for it.
Luch, appreciate it, man.
All right, buddy. Good job.
All right. That's Billy Liucci closing us out on a Monday morning on TexAgs Live. Nick Savage in the host chair tomorrow. He's super looking forward to it.
We're doing 3-hour movie breakdown on Jurassic Park.
Reese, are you in the social center tomorrow?
I'm not. I'll be back on Wednesday.
So you might want to prep whoever's in the seat tomorrow that Nick is going to piss everybody off.
Jurassic Park only.
That's the goal.
All right, sending you to your lunch. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Again, our thoughts and prayers with all those affected in Central Texas and the Hill Country. We're pulling for you out there on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.